Hey everyone, Jack Keeper here, and in this video we're going to take a look at StormOS. This came to my attention thanks to Atef Wadia, and I hope I pronounced that right, Atef. Thanks for the lead on this. This looks really interesting, so I decided to follow up on the StormOS, and so I came out and did a Google search. I couldn't find a website. I did find it on SourceForge. So SourceForge is where I'm at right now. StormOS is a distro that looks like it's been developed by Ben Fitzpatrick and Matthew Moore. What it says here in the description is that StormOS is a beginner-friendly distro based on Archlinux. This distro's goal is to help bring new users over to the world of Arch by offering an easy-to-install, out-of-the-box Arch experience. So we're going to find out just how true that is. It's got features here highlighted, which are the XFCE desktop fully customized, which does look really nice. You know, it doesn't have that plain vanilla look. PanMac Manager, yay AUR helper, I like that. Easy to use Calamares installer. Plenty of apps to make the user experience fun and easy. And shell scripts to ease the user into the world of Arch. That's kind of cool too, so it can kind of encourage you to go from beginner to maybe more advanced if you happen to be one of those technically inclined people. In my experience, most people that go for a pre-configured Arch install really don't want to bother with the technicalities, but they want to enjoy the benefits of Arch. So this really kind of covers that area. From what I'm seeing the ISO down here, and it looks like the latest ISO is from January 27th, 2021. So that's pretty recent as the time of this video. Today's the 29th of January, 2021. So it's only a couple days old. I'm going to go ahead and download this ISO, and then we'll check this out. So I'm going to go ahead and download this guy, and I'll be right back after the download. Okay, and we're back. I got the ISO downloaded and loaded into my VM. So we are at the boot screen right now, and it looks pretty nice. Even has some custom boot options here for AMD Radeon and Intel 915 and NVIDIA video cards. That's pretty cool. It looks like it gives you a lot of options in case you're having maybe driver issues. So I haven't seen that before. That's nice. I like that. And then of course, boot existing OS. So I can leave my image in here and go ahead and boot anyway. So nice. Let's go ahead and jump in. So we're going to pop in here and take a look at the live version, which I'm assuming is probably an XFCE desktop because this is an XFCE distro. And so kind of looking forward to seeing what we got here. Okay, we're booted into our screen now. So it looks like we have the Planck dock down below, and then we have our panel up here on top. So that's kind of a nice look. I'm going to go ahead and real quick just adjust the resolution so we have a more civilized look here instead of the big dark borders on there. There we go. That's better. That's more civilized. All right. I'm not going to waste too much time with the whole install thing because you've probably seen this a million times on other videos with the Calamares installer. It's very straightforward and simple. Right out of the box, it looks very clean. We have our Planck down here on the bottom and our XFCE panel up on top. So let's go ahead and do this install and see what we got. So here we have our Calamares installer. So I'm just going to run through this real fast. No sense in wasting a lot of time on this part because it's all pretty straightforward. Just erase disk because we're in our virtual environment, so I'm not afraid of losing anything. Then we'll give ourselves a username. Toadlick. There we go. And then really complicated 256 character password with all upper ASCII characters. And then go next. And install. This is the part where you always want to double check if you're on a live drive with maybe a separate home partition. You want to make sure you're not formatting over your home partition. And install. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and let this run through the install. Got a nice screen here during that you can kind of check out during the install. And it's showing that it is an Arch-based rolling release distro designed for simplicity and functionality right out of the box. I'm going to go ahead and pause this video and then I'll be back after the install. Okay, and the install is completed. The install only took about 12 minutes, so that wasn't bad at all. And in the meantime, I grabbed a cup of joe and I'm ready to check this out. So let's go ahead and restart and see what we got. And now we're at our boot screen again, so I'm just going to run down here to existing OS. And there's our StormOS Linux menu. Let me go ahead and hit start here. And see if anything explodes. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and log in with my super secure password. And here we are. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and adjust my resolution again real quick. Set it at 1920 by 1080. There we go. Yes, much better. Now let's take a look around. So it looks like our general layout looks the same as the live version. So we have our panel up here on top and our plank on the bottom. So it looks pretty nice and not really anything in the background there except the solid color. So let's go ahead and add something in the background to give it more of a cool look. So we'll hit desktop settings here and select the background folder. And nothing there. Okay. Wow, that's weird. This is like the second review in a row that I've done with issues with backgrounds. That's weird. You know what? I think it's time to call Mo back into active. Mo, you know what to do. Get him. Jeez, Mo, don't you think that was a little harsh?
Why, you imbecile.
Ouch. Why, you. Note to self, never mess with Mo. Okay. So let's see what's going on here. All right. So maybe, okay, none of these other folders would have anything. Let's go to other. Maybe there's like a subfolder or something in the backgrounds. Oh, that's cool. Takes us right to user share backgrounds, or USR. And there it is. Okay, cool. So we have a StormOS subfolder, and there they are. Arr, there be the booty. Okay. So I'm gonna open that, and yes, there we go. Lots of nice wallpaper. In fact, really nice looking wallpaper. Wow. Very cool. So there's a multicolor one. I like that. That's pretty sweet. Wow, that's very cool. I like that. That's a great wallpaper there. Stormtrooper. Nice. Very cool. Yeah, great backgrounds here. I'm liking these. Beautiful colors. Lots of things. Who's that? Lightning McQueen. Kerchow. Wow. Nice. I like it. Very cool. Looks like they put a lot of personality and nice choices here in wallpaper. That's a great Stormtrooper background there. Wow. Love it. Nice. So many great choices. I don't know where to go. Yoda. My former Jedi Master. Master Yoda. He says, "Why, you putz? I wouldn't waste my time with you." I think, you know what? I might keep this one. Yeah, I might go with that. That's a really tough choice. I mean, there's so many great wallpapers in here. That's a tough one. But yeah, I think this is good. Okay, now we got the background. First thing we see here is we got our plank on the bottom and our panel on the top. So that's kind of nice. I like that. Not everybody is a fan of having a dock on the bottom, or a dock, I mean, period. You're not a dock fan and you'd rather just have the panel. I can show you real quick how we can easily modify that. First of all, if you didn't like plank at all or having a panel, you can always just uninstall it using the add remove software. You can just go here at the very end of the bar. If you go take your arrow, get right to the very edge and right click. You got to find the sweet spot and then select quit, and that'll turn it off. Another thing you can do after you do that is you can take it out of your startup, but if you just really don't want it, just uninstall it. Now, here's what I like to do. I do like having a dock. I think the dock is very convenient because you can put all your favorite apps right down in the dock and then just select from your favorite apps without having to go through the menu. To me, that's kind of nice. Of course, in here, I would probably just remove some of the stuff that I never use, and that's easy to do simply by right-clicking and then unchecking the Keep in Dock, and then that'll remove it. To add something, it's just the opposite. You would just launch an application, and the application will show up down here in the dock with a little dot under it, and you would just simply right-click on it, and then check the box, Keep in Dock, and then it'll stay there. So very simple to use. However, I'm also in the camp where I like the panel here on the bottom with a traditional bottom bar, and then come over here to the bottom left to open your menu. What I do is I kind of do a compromise. I like my dock on top and my panel on the bottom. So to do that, we just simply find our sweet spot again here over at the edge of the dock, and sometimes it takes a couple tries to get that sweet spot. You gotta be right on the edge. There we go. And then I'm going to go into Preferences. And here under Position, I'm going to check this and select Top. Okay, so now we got it on top here. So I'm going to close that. And now I'm going to take our panel and I'm going to move this to the bottom. So to do that, we simply just on the panel, right click, select Panel and Panel Preferences. And then we can uncheck the Lock Panel box. And when we do that, you'll see a couple little handles at the end here that appeared, or grippers, if you want to call it that. Just left click and drag it down to the bottom. There we go. And then we can relock our panel. Easy peasy. Right now you see a red border around it, and that's because the panel preferences is open. So that's why you see the red border, and that'll go away when we close it. Yeah, much better. Very cool. My first impression right off the bat is pretty good. I really like the look here. Really nice. It's styled nicely. The panel looks great. It's got a little bit of opacity backed off, so it's a little bit transparent. I like that. So it's kind of a nice modern look. It doesn't have that typical vanilla XFCE that you normally see. And of course, this is running XFCE 4.16, which is the latest. So they've also updated their icons. And so let's take a look at those. We can go in here. We can select the settings manager either right from here because they have a launcher attached right to the dock, or we can go the traditional way in the menu and select it right here. Nice. So here's our settings panel. Let's just run through it real quick. We have our About Me where you can, I think, set your image. And then we can give ourselves a mugshot. So like I can click on this baby and hit browse, and let's just jump in here just for the heck of it and look at something like Yoda. Yeah, that's kind of cool. I like that. And then here you can kind of change the orientation. That looks pretty good too, the right. But I'm thinking the center looks even better somehow. I'm going to hit apply just for fun. And yeah, pretty cool. I like it. So my mugshot should show up here in the menu. Well, maybe I have to apply it first. There we go. And then there it is in the menu. Cool. So now I got my own mugshot. Nice. Let's jump over to appearance. So in our appearance, we have all our different themes, and I'm going to open up the file manager real quick so we can kind of see our changes better. So here's our file manager, and our file manager should be thru, which is the default for XFCE, which it is. Great. And so now let's check out these different themes. So it looks like it's got a lot of different styles in here for our XFCE. Nice. So by default, it's this Kogear dark, I guess. So here's the Manjaro dark. And if we come over here, our highlighting changes to the Manjaro colors. So yeah, nice. And I must have hit the light. So okay, now we got the Manjaro light. I ran Manjaro for a few years, way back when. And so I'm kind of burned out on the Manjaro green there. So let's try something different. How about the Ubuntu Win Light? See what that looks like. All right, so that gives us an orange highlighting over here. Very cool. I like the orange. That actually kind of works for me. So let's go with that. And then over here we can change our icons if you like. By default we have the Tele Black Dark, which to me is kind of dark. So let's see what kind of alternatives we have. Ah, brown. That's kind of cool. All right, so kind of unique there. I like that, the brown. And the dark actually refers to a dark theme oriented dark, not actually dark brown, I don't think. And true with all the other colors too. So then we got ourselves the blue and green. Green looks nice, I like that. And then we have a Tele Gray if you like the monochrome look. And then there's the Manjaro ones if you like the Manjaro look. Orange, we got pink, and that would look actually especially good with the dark themes. So would the red actually. Red and black is a great combo. Then we got purple, that's nice. Wow. It's actually kind of tough choices here. And here's the Ubuntu orange, which actually matches the highlighting much better, so I might go with that. And then our yellow, which kind of is more of a Windowsy kind of look, probably. So let's go with orange for now. Nice. And then here's our font settings, where you can set your default fonts if you like. Sans Regular is our default at 10, so that's not bad. And then our settings. So the settings, what this really refers to, show images on buttons, that's referring to down here as an example. We have all settings with an arrow, and then we got a little X next to the close. So if we were to take that off, then our buttons wouldn't have the little icons on them when you open apps and so forth. Regarding the menus, these images are related to like when you go into like here's your file menu, and you have all these little icons next to your options here. And if for some reason you had some kind of hang up about icons and you're like, I can't stand icons, then you can uncheck show images and menus. Then when you look at your menu, those pesky icons are gone. So that's what that relates to. I'm going to put them back though because I like them. All right, event sounds, if you like having all kinds of noises, you know, bothering you, that's fine. And then our window scaling, which I would recommend keeping it at 1x unless you have some reason to double it. But otherwise, everything's going to be really huge and off the screen. So there we go. That covers appearance. Here's our clipboard manager settings, which normally I would just kind of keep all that at the default. One thing I like about Linux is your clipboard has history in it, so you can copy and paste something like, say, some text from a web page into a text document, and then maybe copy something else and paste it, and copy something else and paste it, and then maybe you need that clipboard information from a few instances back. You can go back in your clipboard history and grab that instance and repaste it somewhere. So that's kind of nice. And I don't think you can do that in Windows. I think that they only have one layer of history, so to speak. And here's our desktop settings where we were a little before. These are our backgrounds that we set. And just to elaborate on this a little bit, Here you can set your style, like zoomed is default, but you can also scale your background, which will, in this case, leave a little bit of a margin on each side. Of course, you can stretch it, which will take it a little bit out of proportion. But sometimes, you know, there's reasons you might want to stretch it. You can tile it. So if you have a small image, you can tile it across the screen. And then you can simply center it. And then you can have no style, which is back to that. Okay, so that's kind of what that's all about. Most of you already know that, but I'm kind of talking to the beginners too. And then here you can rotate your backgrounds. So change your backgrounds every X number of minutes. By default it's 10. And then it'll go through each one of these one at a time. Or you can hit the random order and then it'll randomly choose pictures to rotate. So that's what that's all about. And then we have apply to all workspaces. This is nice because I remember a couple years ago that wasn't really possible. I think back when I first started using, I can't remember, but you know, in my early days of XFCE, I'm pretty sure that I couldn't have separate images for separate workspaces. So here you can do that. You can leave that unchecked. So by default, you can have a desktop with Yoda here and then go to the other desktop and maybe use Lightning McQueen in the background. And I'll show you how to do that when we add in our desktop switcher. Because by default, it looks like we have just one desktop activated. So I'm going to add another desktop here in a little while. And we'll just give it another background. And then we have our menus, which normally I just kind of leave at default. And same with our icons. However, the icons, this corresponds to, like, for example, your desktop icons. Right now, 48 is the size. If you have vision problems, you can crank that baby up to, like, say 90, you know, and then it's huge. Wow. Or things to be smaller, you can make them really small, like say 28, and then they're really tiny. And of course you can use the buttons here to tweak it up and down, and they'll change accordingly. I think it was 48 by default, so I'm going to just stick it back in there at 48. And then of course we can orientate our icons. Some people like a horizontal orientation, so you can select that. We'll go ahead and hit that. We get that little warning because if you had your icons in a special order, then, you know, it's going to kind of hose your ordering by changing these. So yeah, I mean, there's a ton of choices for your orientation. Personally, I just like the traditional top left vertical. And then, of course, we got all our options here, tooltips and thumbnails and all that. And then here at the bottom, we got extra options that we can display up here. So I can hit removable drives and have them display. And then I can even tweak, so you can pick and choose network shares, drives, other devices. So maybe you only want network shares to show up, so you can uncheck these two boxes and so forth. So lots of options that you can choose from. All right. So back to all settings. And then we have our file manager settings. And so there's some worthwhile things in here too, like sorting folders before files. That's the default. Some people like strict alphabetical order and they don't care whether they're folders or files. So if you want them mixed in and completely in alphabetical order, I'm just going to go to list view here real quick and then show hidden files. So here we have folders, and then down here we have some hidden files. Hidden files have a dot in front of them. If we uncheck this box, then we got a mixture of folders and files, but they're perfectly in alphabetical order. If you fall in that camp where you like having both, then just simply uncheck that box and then you'll be alphabetical order regardless of whether it's a folder or a file. Personally, I like folders first, so I'm just going to check that back. You know, here's our other stuff and our date format here. By default, the format would be like in a today format. So these files were modified today. If you want something more accurate, you can change that format here, and you could say today at, you know, the time, in this case 9:14 and so on. Or if you don't want today in there at all and you just want it shorter, then you can have it like that. Now in the today format, Of course, if it wasn't created today, then you're going to have the date here. So that was something created back in December, it looks like. Me personally, if I create a file today, there might be situations where I want to know when it was created. So I would probably go with something like this. That kind of reminds me that it's today. Or one of these other options like maybe this format where you have the month, day, and year. So that's another good format. So that's where you can set that. And then we have our side pane here that shows our icon sizes and so forth. If you don't like emblems for some reason, you can turn them off and so forth. And then we have our behavior here, our navigation. So if you came over from, say, KDE, or you just like to single click on your icons to open them, or single click on an application to open it, then you can select this here, and then it will open your items with just a single click instead of a double click. There's a lot of good reasons for single click. The first time I was introduced to that in KDE, I didn't like it at first, mainly because when I was in here, if I wanted to manipulate some things in the file manager, maybe copy and paste some folders or files, it caused issues for me. Like, for example, if I wanted to copy and paste this file somewhere else, I would come over and I would click on it, and then all of a sudden it'd get launched, and I'd be like, what? Come on, man, I just wanted to copy it. And so I would trap myself by clicking on the file. And so for me, that was just a pain in the butt. And then in time, I realized that I get it. When you hover over something like a file or a folder, it will automatically highlight that just by hovering. So, for example, if I hover over pictures, let me focus back in. So if I hover over the pictures, it will highlight it. So then I can simply hit Ctrl-C or right-click and copy, and then paste it somewhere. If I wanted to do multiples, all I have to do is hover over a file, and then hold my Shift key down and go down to here, and it'll give me a range, and then I can copy and paste. Or if I want to do it selectively, I can just hover over a file and then hold my Control key and then hover over another file and so forth. And then copy and paste. So that's how you get around that. That's the proper way to do your copy and pasting when you're in single click mode. So I just thought I'd share that with you. And I'll just stick it back to double click here just for the heck of it. Overall, I do kind of like the single click. It spoils you after a while because it just feels faster to be able to go around and just single click. Okay, let's go back out to our all settings. And this is our kbantum manager. This is handy if you're maybe running an application that was created in Qt or like a KDE Qt type application. Occasionally you might get a Qt application that doesn't look the same in its theming. You know, you might have a light theme here, and then maybe your Qt application looks dark and kind of crappy looking. In your kbantum, this is where you can kind of change the theme for those type of apps. And so you can hit that change theme and then go in here and select a different theme, maybe something with a brighter color like flat light or something. And then that will make your application look more civilized. Kind of what that's all about. And that's something you could really go a lot of detail into, kbantum, but that's the gist of it. And then you have your notification settings, which just kind of show you how your notifications will appear down here. And you can have them disappear after X number of seconds. So if you don't like them hanging around too long, you could just drop that down to like, say, 2 seconds. And then if you hit show preview, then it'll preview here and disappear after 2 seconds. And so this is kind of where you can kind of tweak those. And maybe you want to position somewhere else. You could put it over at the bottom left if you want, or at the top. So you can, you know, do all kinds of stuff here for your notifications. And now it's over here. And then also your application settings, so you can block notifications for certain things if you want, or show them. And then a log if you want to log your notifications. Maybe you don't want any notifications, but you just want them logged. So that'll do that. And then we have our panel settings over here. And we were in here earlier where we unlocked our panel. And of course we have our different modes, so you can make your panel vertical if you want, or a desk bar style. And you can auto hide your panel if you like. You can adjust your row size. So down here we could make this bigger actually. So I could actually just kind of crank that up a bit. Say 38 is kind of a nice height. And since I'm here, I think I'm going to just kind of scooch up a little bit too, so you can see the stuff over here. There we go, that's a little better. Yeah, maybe not perfect, but yeah, it's pretty good. Okay, so now we can see all this stuff down here. Excellent. Now, here's where we can set the length of our bar. If you don't want it to go all the way across like a traditional bar, you can shrink it here. Under our appearance, we have our dark mode, which I really like, because as you noticed, I'm using a light theme now, and I'm just going to turn off those hidden files. But when we come in here, our menu is light. It looks okay, but I really like the dark menu better. And in some themes, when you go to a light theme, will make panel light as well. So this is a new feature in XFCE 4.16, dark mode, which is really nice. So if you hit dark mode, then if your panel went light, it will go dark like it is now. And then your menu will also be dark. Yet you can still keep your light theming here in your applications. So that's a really nice feature. I love the dark mode. One of my favorite features of the new XFCE 4.16. Really cool. And then here we can set our background style if you like a background image. We could even color it if you want. So for example, we could hit our little color picker and we could make that panel down below a different color, like orange or red or purple, brown. You know, any of these colors we could do just for fun. So like if I selected the dark orange, then our panel down here would be kind of dark orange, which is a little bit, yeah. I wonder what brown looks like. Well, that looks kind of cool. Not bad. We got purple. Yeah, you can, you know, kind of enhance your bar down there if you like, and kind of give it a cool look if you want. So I just thought I'd share that with you, just for fun there. And then with that, you know, I think that looks kind of moderately neato. So yes, these are all the different options you can do with your bar. Eek. That's kind of scary. So anyways, I'm just going to go ahead and move this back to none because I kind of like the system style. And then here we can adjust the opacity of our bar. If you want to give it a little bit of transparency, we can back it off a little. And that's when you enter it. So if we come down here, then it becomes a little more transparent when we come down there. If you want it really transparent, you can do that. These are all different settings where you can kind of tweak your panel. And then of course we have our items. And so if you want to move your items or add items, we can do that right here. These little arrow keys are like for moving your items. So if you wanted your clock to move over, you can hit your up arrow key and it'll start sliding your clock every time you click and then move back. Of course, you can also right click down here in the panel and just select move and grab something and move it. But the arrow keys are the tried and true method where it'll give you less headache. And then, of course, if you want to add some items, we can go in here and add something like, I kind of like the show desktop feature. So I'm going to just put that in there and add it. And by default, it's down here at the end. And anything else I might like? Oh, maybe our workspace switcher. So we can do desktops. So I'm going to add that in as well. And as you can see, it's over at the end here. So I'm going to select it here and then just bump it up with the arrows until it's all the way over by the start menu. So there we go. Now we got it over here. And at the moment we only got one workspace. So there's really nowhere to switch. But we'll get to that in a second. So then we got our panel profiles, which I pretty much would not mess with this actually. You have your current configuration, but you can set other profiles here like a GNOME 2 or OpenSUSE XFCE, different older styles here, and your Ubuntu. But if you change those, you'll need to save your current configuration right here. But from past experience, I've noticed that when you do that, if you change these around a bit and then go back to your saved configuration, it doesn't always look exactly the same way you saved it. So I would kind of proceed at your own risk on that one. Now we have our window manager, and here we can set the styling for the top bar here. Right now it's set for a dark style, but if you prefer a lighter one, you can hit one of those. And so this is where all that would change. And then of course you can center your title, which is centered by default, or move it over to a different area, like to the left or right. And then our button layout, you can even change your layout here. So if you wanted, let's say, your close, minimize, and maximize buttons here over on the other side, you could move them all over on the opposite side if you wanted to, or put them wherever you like. So that kind of gives you the options to kind of do things like that. And then these are our keyboard shortcuts to initiate things, so that's always a plus. And we got our focus settings and advanced settings. So these are all things that if you're into really modifying things and you're kind of on a more advanced level, it's kind of handy. And then we have our window manager tweak. Again, I just kind of stay with the defaults on these typically for all these different things: focusing and accessibility, workspaces, placement. So by default, your applications will open up at the center of this screen, but you could also have it open up under your mouse pointer, and so depending on where your mouse is. And then the compositor. This is in charge of your effects, so you can tweak your different effects here. And so our window decorations are top area here. So like if I wanted to make that more transparent, I could back off the opacity, and as you can see now it's pretty transparent, or give it a slight transparency, you know, if you feel that looks a little more cool. And if you notice, when I slide the window around, it's going transparent when I move it, and that's because of this setting right here, opacity of windows during move. So that's where you can do that. And if you wanted to turn it off, of course, and just crank it all the way up to opaque, and then it won't go transparent. That's your compositor settings. Nice. And now we have our workspaces. So let's go in here, and by default we have one workspace. So I'm going to add another one here, and you can have lots of workspaces if you wanted to. So these are different desktops. Now I have two workspaces, and then margins. Normally I never tweak those, but you can increase your margins between your workspaces if you want. Now that we have two workspaces, if I go over here and click on this workspace, you can see it's blank, because as you remember before, when we were in our wallpaper settings, we had it set so by default, of course, that both workspaces can have their own background. So if we go in here and go to our desktop settings, we can set another background for our workspace. And so here we go to our folder and select grounds again. Actually go select other again, just like we did at the beginning. Go into backgrounds, StormOS, hit open, and we got our backgrounds back for our other desktop. So let's say we wanted maybe this one. We could select that guy, and now we're differentiating our desktops. So we have a desktop here with this background, and our original desktop with Yoda in the background. So nice. So that's another nice little touch with your workspaces. Then we have our terminal settings, which by default I think the terminal is just fine. You can hit F12 too, by the way, and that'll give you the drop down for your XFCE terminal. And it has the dark background with the light lettering, so that's exactly the way I like it. Typically I never really, if I hit F12 again, that'll go off. Typically I never really change anything in here. I'm always pretty happy with the way it is. But if you want to change anything as far as the drop down, the opacity, and so forth, that would all be done in here. Appearance is where you would change your opacity. So maybe if you don't like the transparent background, you can make it completely opaque by bringing the slider all the way up, or anywhere in between. And then our colors is what I like by default, but you can also change your text color to dark and your background to a light color, and so forth. And then you have presets. So you can use any of these presets here, and it'll give you different looks. There's green on black, you know, that's kind of cool. I could live with that. And dark pastels. So there's a lot of options in here. And then your black on white, which some go default that way. To me, it looks too much like a text editor, so sometimes I get them mixed up if I have a text editor open. That's why I like having a differentiation. So usually white on black is cool with me. Although that green on black was kind of nice. All right. So jumping out of there again, let's jump down and just take a real quick look through our hardware. Bluetooth and color profiles don't really apply since I'm in a VM, so there's nothing really that it will show. Our display settings is where we changed our resolution earlier. And under advanced, you can do advanced settings for your display as well, especially if you're using multiple displays. There's some handy things in there. Then we have our keyboard. I like to check the restore numlock state on startup. I'm going to do that because I like having my numlock on all the time. So when I turn it on, the next time I boot, it'd be nice to have the numlock on. And then of course we can add shortcut commands and pop them in there for applications if we want them to launch with a keyboard shortcut. And then I stick with defaults on the layout normally. Then we got our mouse and touchpad, got left-handed settings, so if you want to reverse your right and left click, this is where you would do it. That way if you're left-handed, you don't have to turn your mouse upside down. And you can even reverse your scroll direction if you're like really want to challenge your IQ. Here's where you set your pointer speed, and you can set your device up here. Your behavior, you can drag and drop threshold and double click. So if you happen to be a fast double clicker, you can back this off. If you're a slow double clicker, you can crank that up and your things will launch better. Now you have default and WADA, your different cursors. So you can have a light cursor or a dark. And then back here, we have our power manager. And so these are our power settings. If you want to set your power settings here, especially more relevant with a laptop, I guess. But you can also set your suspend settings and all that good stuff. And then we have our accessibility for your assistive technologies and all that. Add remove software, which is your package manager. And there's nothing there by default, so I probably just want to go here and select refresh databases. And then that'll refresh our list here, and then we should see software showing up. And then just hit apply. Okay, and then we got our, looks like we got an update that ran as well. So I'm just going to hit close there. Okay, let's just hit our back button here. And here's our software. Excellent. And then of course you can hit updates or installed. See your installed applications here, or browse. If you need to search for something, just hit your little search button there, and then it'll show up here and install. Also in our settings, I like to go in here and go into preferences. And then under AUR, I like to activate the AUR support. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. And then build directory is fine. But if I had two separate partitions and my home folder was on a separate partition, which was much bigger, then I would kind of make a temp folder in my home partition and point this guy there instead, just by going here and selecting other. And then you're not using up valuable space in your Linux install, which is usually a much smaller partition. So that's just a little tweak that I like to do. And then we have our default applications. So here's where you can set your defaults, like your default web browser. If you have Firefox, you can change it if you want. And same with your file manager. If you want a different file manager other than thru, you can go in here and make that your default file manager, your alternative. And then under others, we have our mime settings. So that's pretty cool here. That's another new thing in version 4.16 of XFCE, is the mimes are now in a nice tab separated, and it makes it much better for looking less confusing and more organized. Then we have our firewall, which is off by default, but here you can turn it on, and our session and startup. Here's where you can do your auto start. So if you want to auto start or take something out of your startup, like say you don't want Plank anymore, you can uncheck that and it'll go out of your startup. Then we have our defaults that are showing here, and you can even enable GNOME services and KDE services if you have the need to do that. So very good. And then we have our decomp editor here. If you're more advanced and you need to do some modifications, this is kind of a GUI for modifying those comp settings. So that kind of covers that. One thing I forgot to really mention is down here in your Windows buttons. Let's just jump in our panel settings real quick. If we go to items and then window buttons, let's click this icon to go into our window button settings. You can, if you like button labels down here, you can check the box here and it'll show your button labels. Some people really like to be able to move these around and change the order. If you want to do that, just go to sorting order and select none, allow drag and drop, and then that'll allow you to change the order on which your Windows buttons are displaying down here. And then your window grouping is defaulting to never. You can have these group if you want, so if you have a couple instances open, they will stack on top of each other, so to speak. So those are two main points I just kind of wanted to show there. So yeah, those are your window button tweaks. Cool. Let's see our software. And we're just going to do a real fast run through here. Under accessories, I'm clicking these, so I kind of like those to change by hovering. So I'm going to right click over my menu button. I'm going to select properties and behavior, and I'm going to switch categories by hovering. That way it just changes as I hover over. I kind of like that personally. So anyways, under accessories we have all our different apps, Albert and Application Finder, Archive Manager. We have Compton and PyCom, which is the newer version of Compton. That's an alternative compositor. If you're having some kind of screen tearing issues or anything, you can change your compositor from the default XFWM4 to PyCom. Our HP Device Manager, I like seeing that in there. Here's our Plank. If you want a Redshift, that's nice. If you're having brightness issues and you install it and your computer's way too bright, you can activate Redshift here, and then that will back off the brightness on your computer. And there's also a Redshift GUI that you can download from the package manager if you need to tweak it even more, like, you know, adjust your brightness. But that's a nice brightness alternative. Sometimes you get a computer where the brightness settings just don't work for some reason. And so Redshift is a nice, easy cure for that. Then we have our screenshot software, sensor viewer, token, solar. So yeah, a lot of stuff. SUSE Studio Image Writer. That's my favorite image writer. That's nice to see on there. Cool. We have our task manager, which is similar to like a Windows task manager. So here's where you can kill rogue tasks if they're giving you a hard time. Nice. And then of course, our thru file manager and Vim. Nice. Under development, we got our Meld and Notepad. Our LibreOffice Math under education. That's cool. I didn't know that was going to be there. We got Lutris and Steam for you gamers. Lutris, that's a nice touch. And then we have our document scanner, our PDF viewer, FlameShot, which is our screenshot software. And then we have GIMP and Inkscape, which are two of my staples. So that just saved me the trouble of having to install those. Then we have a color picker, LibreOffice Draw, and Nomax, the image viewer, which is especially good on animated GIFs. Then we have our internet stuff here. Chromium is our default browser. And then we have other extras like Discord and TeamViewer. Wow. Telegram. You get TeamViewer. I do have a TeamViewer account, but I rarely ever use it. And then here's our Steam again and our BitTorrent. All great. And then we have Audacity installed. That's normally what I have by default, and OBS Studio. So and VLC player. 3 other things that I don't have to install because it's on here. Handbrake is a nice transcoder app. So if you need to convert something, say AVI file to an MP4, that'll do the trick for you. And then we have our volume control, which is down here. Some cute stuff and simple screen recorder. Another thing I install normally. So nice. Yeah, that's really great. This is an install that really saves me a lot of trouble. Then we have LibreOffice installed here by default. Very cool. So we have Base, which is equivalent to Microsoft Access. And then we have Calc, which is like Excel. And then Draw and Office Math, Impress, which is like PowerPoint. So yeah, a lot of great stuff. And Writer, which is a Word equivalent. Very cool. Gorgeous. And then under Other, we got some miscellaneous scanning and API for TeamViewer. And then our settings is like pretty much where we were on our big tour. And then we have system items, add reboot software, your decomp editor, more stuff that we've already been through. Gparted, which is a partition manager, locality, htop, so we can see our resources here. And right now we're only using 731 megs. Wow. You know, I'm used to heavier desktops, so when I see 731 megs, that seems like so small. That's really great. I love it. You know, so lightweight. And like I said, yeah, because I run a lot of heavier desktops, and this is really refreshing to see that. F10 should quit out of htop. Or manage printing. VirtualBox right out of the box. Nice. You know, that's really nice. I typically like KVM, QEMU myself, but VirtualBox, it's nice to see it there. That pretty much covers it for our apps. So, yeah, what do I think? You know, what's my opinion here on all this? I'm really liking this. I'm really very comfortable in here. This is like, you know, you install it and you feel right at home right off the bat. I really like that. And would I use this on my own machines? Absolutely. I don't see any flaws in here. So if you just want a quick install of Arch where you can just get something up and running really fast instead of building it from scratch, then this is a great option, especially for someone like me that you can just do a quick 12-minute install and then have all the apps that I typically use, my standards like OBS and all that. I'd probably add in Shotcut or for video editing. And then, you know, anything that I didn't want, I would simply just remove. This for a done for you solution. This is really wonderful. Even if it was a daily driver, I'd be very comfortable with it. In fact, this is one of the most comfortable XFCE default setups that I've seen. Really nice. And I don't think I would change much on it at all. Yes, overall, I give this a double thumbs up. And thanks again, Atef, for bringing this to my attention. StormOS is really interesting, and I'm going to keep an eye on this for sure. Might even install it on one of my other computers. With that, I want to say that should cover it for my review. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit that like button with a thumbs up. And hit subscribe. We'll see you in the next video.